My name is Teresina Obie. I'm a Yurok tribal member and a descendant of the Karuk, Hoopa, and Tohono O'odham tribes. It's extremely important to share information regarding our traditional native foods because it's our main staple. It's who we are as Indigenous people and our connection to each other. So whether it's acorns, deer meat, salmon, our huckleberries, these are our traditional foods, and learning the process of them will continue our future generations. There's so many importance that comes with preparing acorns in our traditional ceremonies. It's not only about the intention and purpose of gathering, but it's about feeding the people, showing gratitude and humility of making acorns in servitude of the people. Advice for beginners: it's never too late to learn. I started learning to make acorns, like the soup part of it, at 21, but I started gathering when I was a lot younger. So, any age, and there's always a purpose and there's always a position or a spot for anybody wanting to get involved, whether it's through ceremonies, gathering, or our other resources. So generally the best time is September through the beginning of November, depending on the rain and wind factor. You want to wait for either the first rain or a strong winds to come through to knock the acorns down. Each time we go out and gather, it's with family, it's with friends. It's a good time. It's especially important, during this time of COVID, that we keep our mental health awareness. And so when we're feeling cooped up inside or just feeling a little down, it's really good to go reconnect with nature and spend time together. A person can do it on their own, the whole process, but it's really fun having a group to go with. Talking with the elders, talking with women in your family, or men that they know of gathering spots, and making sure that you're safe when you're going out. Going in groups is best. And as for burning, it's controlled burning is very important. And I know there's all new regulations and new restrictions on controlled burning, but the more it happens, the better for other of our natural resources. I recently took out my younger cousin. She's 7 years old, for her first time to gather acorns. We went gathering in Hoopa, California, and before going to gather, we left an offering just to let the ancestors know that we are here and our purpose and intention of gathering the acorns, and to pass that knowledge. Acorns that have little holes in them, you can tell that little critters got in there and are feeding off the acorn. You want to look for acorns that don't have any holes, that generally have the white top, and put them in your basket or cardboard box, whatever you're gathering with. Sometimes acorns, though, if they have a little hole in it, you can just test it and see, it may be good. It may come out with darker spots on the actual nut itself. Here we have the nut, and so here's the part where I talked about the discoloration of the acorn. What I like to do is just take a little knife and break that part and just use the brown piece. However, some people don't. They throw the whole nut in to grind it down, and it comes out great too. So it's all preference and what the individual is used to, and experimenting with acorns too. My favorite part is the whole process, from gathering to, drying them out. It takes about a year. Some people go 2 years to dry out their acorns. And then it's great to have the cousins and aunties and, the older generations coming and sharing stories and laughter of having acorn cracking parties, or, learning just anything more about acorns. So after gathering, for a certain time of year, drying out the acorns for a year, or some people like to go 2 years, then you have the cracking, piece of it, where you take the nut out of the shell. And once you have the whole nut, you can grind it down, and there's many different tools that you can use to grind down. And then the leaching process generally takes, it all just depends on how big your batch is. It can take 1 day, or it can take up to 4 or 5 days, depending on the amount being leached. And it's really important to sift through every so often, every couple of hours, to have, whether a spoon or your finger or whatnot, just to sift through and to mix the powder up while it's being leached. The purpose of leaching is to help reduce the bitterness in the tanninic acorns. And one of the reasons this is important because there's the tannic acid that comes from acorns, and that leaching out the acid will help, digest better within the systems. And I've also heard, I haven't done it myself, but I have heard that tannic acid can be used to help with cataracts or eye irritations. So that's something I would love to learn more about. Everybody has their own unique style of making acorns, and whether it works for one person, another person has a different style, it all comes out, equally important of providing acorns. And what I really appreciate the most is the time and patience it takes into it, and the prayers that go into making acorns for the people. So you gather acorn rocks along the river bar. They are black, round, and smooth. You can tell if they have a crack in them. That means they might crack in your fire when they're heating them up. And so you want to look for black, round, smooth acorn rocks. Some people, I don't do this, but some people test them by they'll take the rock and drop it. And if it cracks, and you can tell it would crack in the fire. I personally don't like to do that, just because I don't like to be rough or, show that kind of physical aggression towards the acorn rock, because that can translate into your acorn soup, was my belief. Mm-hmm. So then when you're cooking acorns, you want to build up your fire really big and put them towards the middle where all the coals are, and let them heat up until they are glowing a little bit, depending on the size of the rock too. So smaller rocks can come in many different shapes and sizes. So when making acorn soup and gathering your rocks, it depends on how much acorns you're going to make. So for ceremony, you can use anywhere between 7 to 10, and then filter sometimes 15, up to 15 rocks, and filter those rocks in periodically to heat them up. When you're pulling out acorn rocks from the fire, these are really good tools. I've seen people use shovels. I've seen people use sticks, and then just kind of pat the ashes off. So when you go to get it, you just kind of toss the acorn rock back and forth to get as much ashes off. And then this is used to stir the acorns. This was made by Eric Reese. He's a Kaduk tribal member and local artist. He carved out the different designs, and if you look at the top here, it matches my cap that I'm wearing currently. These come in all shapes and different sizes depending on the person and their preference. Here we have a woman's acorn spoon. It's a mussel shell. We can use modern times. We can use regular metal spoons, but women typically will use the mussel shell, and then men eat with acorn or carved some type of wood. Baskets are acquired, whether it's passed down generational, or if you buy them, or learning to make them yourself, or having somebody who's a basket maker make one, and then purchasing or trading for it. So baskets come in all different ways. This basket here in particular was in an auction in Nevada, and my aunt sent it over because she realized it was from one of our tribes here, and so she bought it and sent it. So that's how that one came home. But yeah, baskets are acquired many different ways. eBay, Amazon, going into thrift stores. And one of the hard parts for me is that our baskets are everywhere. They're overseas, they're in other states. And so if we can acquire them and bring them home, that's all the better for the baskets to be home. So here is one, a smaller acorn soup basket. So you see the discoloration. It's an older basket. I'm not quite sure how old exactly, but you see she'll have little darker spots in there. And I've seen smaller than this. I've seen a lot bigger than this. It just depends on the person and how much they're making. My least favorite part would have to be when you run out. So when you finish scraping the bottom of the bowl, that's my least favorite. But more importantly, it's just the awareness that of our local resources and how our water systems and ecosystems are affected and how that affects from the dams on the river to our water and how it's diverted to other areas versus, letting the water naturally come through and feed our resources. The most important thing to me is the clarity of our mind, body, and spirit. It's about being in good thoughts and prayers while processing one of our traditional foods. And especially because our prayers and the songs go into our acorns, and that transfers to the people. And so you want to put good into the world as much as you receive. There's always a role and there's always a purpose for people coming to ceremony or learning from, if they don't want to participate in ceremonies, there's so many other facets to culture that is valuable, and this is just one aspect that it's one of our traditional staples that we use, but fighting for our local resources is just as important. So there's always a purpose and there's always a place for anybody wanting to get involved, no matter the age, from young to to our older generations. No matter the age, it's important to get involved. Food sovereignty to me is the liberation of the colonized Western diet and the different processing of food unnaturally and how that affects indigenous people. We have a higher rate of diabetes, high blood pressure, different elements that cause these harmful internal diseases. And the more we can go back to our traditional foods and learning how to process them is the better for our connection to our physical body, our mental state, our emotional state, but our connection spiritually to our ancestors. Acorns is a ceremony, the process of making acorns, consuming acorns, and serving the people. That's all a prayer, and it's ceremony in itself.